Hello, good Tag. Simcha Milner, and whoever might be listening. Again, I'm putting this on open letter because it's too hard for me to write. I don't have a computer. All I have is a ancient iPhone. Now we'll try and hit all the points you make. Are quoting you. Calling Rav Kook a friend of Chaim Weizmann is calling the Satmar Rav a friend of Kastner. Okay. Now, it was Weizmann that put Rav Kook in power and cooperated him and told him what to do many places. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned before, Weizmann was given a tremendous amount of certificates for Aliyah that many Jews could have come in the 1920 and in those years, and he was afraid that if Haredi Jews come, their party would be voted out of power. So he only allowed a small number of Jews, and they needed a recommendation from Rav Kook, who is Rav Kook. More I could say about this. I don't have the McCord on this. The kids said they had to have a letter from Rav Kook, and many letters which they publicize a lot from the Brisker Rav, from many people, Arav Agoin, and even the Hovetz Chaim. But if you look carefully at the Hovetz Chaim letters, he never called him a Sonic, never called him any of these things. But he wrote very Hanifi letters. They needed it for his son. The Hovetz Chaim's son was in Israel. Bekitzer, he got a lot of credit from this, and they were friends. Now another thing. Weizmann, when they were forming the Rabbanut, he said, or the British said, Bekitzer, that we have to make a few changes in the Rabbanut, in the Halacha. There has to be based in the Iruim, a supreme based in. Ein davar kazeh Torah, ein achara based in Gunish, Klum, Shum davar. There's nothing, there's no such thing in Yiddishkeit. And Rav Kook, of course, was adamant. We can't change Yiddishkeit to make a chief rabbinut. There won't be a chief rabbinut. Another thing the British said and Weizmann said is there has to be Yerushas Abbas. And of course, there's no such thing as Yerushas Abbas. Like we're learning in Daf Yomi now. Towards the end of Daf Yomi, Daf Kuf Nuns and Kuf Nuns ain't Yerushas Abbas. And of course, Rav Kook, he's a Frum Jew, he refused. So they push comes to shove, and they told him, okay, no Rabbanut, won't be Rabbanut. So Rav Kook gave in. But Bekitzer, he was the boss, and Rav Kook listened to him. Weizmann was the boss, and he gave in to him. And many Jews that were in Poland didn't get visas. And I know my father's from Poland, born in Warsaw. Never heard him mention, and he talked a lot of things about his aunts and his uncles, because they all got left behind because we had a relative that was a big Oskin, and because of that, my father's family got out and came to Montreal, where this cousin of his was a very big Oskin, the biggest Oskin in Montreal. Now, you mentioned the Satmar Rebbe and Kastner. Just to tell you a few things, this is all in the books. There's a book, Moshe on Israel. I think it's 9 volumes. All the details are there, all the tikanos. At one point, the Kastner's train, was held up. Eichmann Yamach Shemo wanted more money, and they didn't have it. The Zionim didn't have it. Kastner didn't have it. They were stuck. But the Satmar Hasidim knew the Rebbe was on the train. There were people there. They raised the money. Kastner should be Moda to Rav Kook. Rav Kook and his Talmudim, they saved Kastner. They saved whatever it is, 1,687 people. You correct me if I'm wrong. They saved Kastner. Okay, you ask, what year did Rav Kook write about the 3 Shavuos? As I mentioned last time, the 3 Shavuos, the Shalosh Shavuos, forbid us to dochek the kates. So what year? So I'll tell you what year. I don't know exactly. I just looked it up in Wikipedia, but I understood it was in the early 1900s, and that's when he wrote it. Somehow the siddur wasn't printed where it's written, as I said. Anybody didn't hear it last time in Birchat Hamazon. He talks about we have to eat and be strong, but even though we're strong, we can't revolt against the goyim and fight against the goyim because v'anachnu nishbaim b'shalosh shavuos shakadosh baruch hu ishbi otanu. So this was before 1929. Certainly, I don't know when. Now, what you're implying is, you wrote here, did he realize that the British violated the third oath? Now, in 1929. Now, the Rebbe talks about, the Satmar Rebbe talks about Vayom Moshe Maimer Shalosh Shavuot. I believe in Ayin Hey, Siman Ayin Hey, Ayin Vav. It's on the internet. You could hear it, or you could take the book, of course. But the Shirim from Rabbi Yirmiyahu Cohen are Le'ela, and he brings a lot of things. And this Bekias I have that nobody has, that Rav Aviner didn't have, and that Rav Tsuriel, Zecher Sadik Levracha, who I spoke to many times, didn't have. This Bekias I got from Rav Yirmiyahu Cohen. He brings it as the things there. I couldn't believe it. Rav Kook holds it through. But kids, I looked it up. It's there, and the book, the Siddur, was compiled by Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook. Now, this is also an amazing question. Why didn't he censor it? It's known, and you could ask. You can find out very easily, and if you want, maybe I'll work on it. If you tell me to work on it, if you make another comment. Rav Tzvi Yehuda changed Rav Kook many times. One example I'll tell you, in 1904, something like that, there was a big hesped, a big levaya for Herzl, Theodore, whatever his name was, Benjamin Herzl. There's a big levaya, and Rav Kook gave a hesped there, which was very, very praising of him. His father-in-law, who was called Yozer Aderis, his name was Rabinovitz, told me Rabinovitz, I'm not sure exactly, I don't want to look it up right now. He said, what do you do? This guy was a Russia. By the way, we mentioned this already. I'll mention that Rebbe Shali, one of my big Rebbes, was Yosef Tzvi Cheshen. He learned schus on Herzl. He didn't know anything. What did he know? Mamash Atinuk Shnishba. But the other ones, Ben Gurion, they're the big Rishoyim. In any case, there was someone. What did you write such great things about him for? He was a big Rasha. Okay, it's a letter. You can find it. I'm sure you can find it. But Rav Tzvi Yehuda called him, Herzl, Mashiach ben Yosef, and he had his picture on the wall, even though his father called him the big Rasha, and the letter is found, and you can find it very easily. Now you write in 1929, Tarpot, it's called, with terrible massacres. I think 67 Jews in Hebron were killed, and maybe another 100 all over Eretz Israel. What happened in Tarpot? It didn't just happen in that days there in Achar Tisha B'Av in Tarpot. It has a story to it, and there are laws of the country. We, the Jews, we're sworn we have to keep minhag, the laws of Medina, and that year, Tarpot, which was 8-9 months before the massacres, Rosh Hashanah, they started bringing chairs and blowing the shofar and doing. They started blowing the shofar earlier. It's against the law, but they had to show we're the boss here at the kotel. And there was tremendous tension that whole year at Tarpot. It didn't just happen out of nowhere. And of course, I'm not justifying it, Chalila. But there was so much tension that the British, first of all, Reb Zonenfeld said, not make the march. And the British came to Reb Kook and said, look, we don't know what's going to happen. The Zionim made a march every year to the kotel, around the walls of the kotel, whatever it is, you can find out easily. And the British came, we don't know what's going to happen. Call off the march to go every year. And I was told by somebody who looked in the newspapers, Rav Yosef Shvi Ben Porat is a Rav. He has a YouTube channel. He has a yeshiva. He's a Rosh Yeshiva. He said on the way to the Kotel, they were so enthusiastic, they turned over, if you know the old city a little bit, they put tables out in front of on the street there, they turned over the tables, we're the boss here. They went to the Kotel, they made their demonstration, and afterwards they went to Rav Kook, who inspired them. Wait a minute, the British came to Rav Kook, call it off this year, and he refused. Now after the march, they came to Rav Kook, whatever, around the Kotel, on the walls, and they came to Rav Kook, and he made a thing there, and you could find it easily. Shema Yisrael, a kotel shalanu, a kotel echad. It's pretty hard to believe, but he was a big kanoi that they did the right thing. And this inspired the Arabs, so they say, for these things. They're breaking the status quo, which we had no halachic way to do it. And I knew the man, the man that blew the kotel. I was by him once on Holomoed Pesach. It must have been Pesach because I don't think it was a sukkah. I heard him tell stories of the old days. There's another sikha I can tell you. It was in the old city. They gave him a deer in the old city. He was a big hero. Don't want to mention too much now. But he was famous for blowing the kotel, and they arrested him. And one year he blew the kotel, and the British arrested him. And it was on Yom Kippur, he blew the kotel, Motzi Yom Kippur, and they wouldn't let him out of jail. Rav Kook refused to eat until they told him he's out of jail. This Oskin, who has a chatan, who I was very, very close to in my childhood. I used to eat by him on Shabbos. I came here before my parents came here. I used to go to him on Shabbos, this chatan of this shofar blower. Okay. Now, you mentioned 1929. You should know, and it's brought many places, that the Jews lived well with the Arabs until maybe the first riot in 1920, after the Balfour Declaration, when our people said, we're going to make a Medina. Now, this is really the beginning of being over the Shalosh Shavua. It didn't begin then. It began when they said, we're going to make a Medina. It didn't begin when the Medina was made. It began when they said, we're going to make a Medina. And there were riots already in 1920-something, and then there was tension all the time, until this march on the Kotel did everything. Now, I heard from a big Talmud, I won't mention his name now. He comes from a very Haredi background. He's a very big miyuchas in the Haredi world, but he became a very Leumi, very Leumi. He goes on Har Bayis, and these Rabbi Schwartz, he was the Talmud Chacham of the Sanhedrin. He became such a Leumi. They made a Sanhedrin. There's a Rabbi Schwartz, rest in peace, that it started. He was trying to bring Mashiach, and he made whatever he did for, I don't know. But he said he made a Sanhedrin. It was a big joke, but this big Talmud Rav Kook was the biggest Talmud Chacham in the thing, and he said Rav Kook, when he realized that it was his fault, this thing he could have called off, and the Tarpot wouldn't have happened, Tarpot massacre would have happened. And this is when he got sick, and the Jews lived happily with the Arabs for 1,300 years. There was a book from time immemorial. They were called Dimi, don't know the exact name, but they had to pay extra taxes, but they lived in peace. Now, somebody, Zizikovsky, wrote a long article about it. You can find it on the internet. The evil of the Arabs over the centuries. He brings in the article is in Jewish action, and there may be 7, 8 massacres in 1,300 years. And it could be half of those massacres were, who knows what, for money, for Gazlanim, they're crooks. Yad Bakol, Yad Kol Bo, it says on Yishmael. We lived in peace. And this I heard on the radio. I tried to call her, but there's a professor, Anita Shapiro, that talked about this, that we lived in peace with the Arabs. And also I did speak to the great Israeli historian, Shlita, that he should be alive, well, I speak to him often. His name is Uri Milikovsky, Uri Milstein. And he also said they live well with the Arabs. Yeah, he said this is the big historians. Of course, they don't want to agree to it, but we live until he didn't put it together. I put it together, and other people put it together until the Balfour Declaration, when we said we're going to make a Medina, which is already we're going to be over the Shalosh Shavuos, and that's when all the trouble started. And yes, Rabbeinu the barrels. This you can argue on if you bring any good points. It's arguable. Other things I said are not arguable. Again, look in those chapters 75 through 80. You'll see that. But did I say this already? Just one more second. Maybe I did say it. That the three O's were. Hashem made us swear, and He made them swear. We didn't make an oath like Avram Avinu with Elimelech that. We made a sausage that if I break my oath, he can break his oath. It's not the kind of shvua. It was made. Hashem swore us one, and then He swore them. And if they break their oath, we're not pater from our oath. It's completely different. This is what the Rebbe talks about. The Sabbath Rebbe talks about in between ayin chet, ayin hey, and pei. Ayin sham. Look in there, and again. The shirim, they're on, and you can find them on YouTube by Yirmiyah Cohen. Okay, good tavach, toivos, kol tov.